Well, this is a very, very good story as far as justice in the country is concerned. As of the 31st of January this year, suspects arrested and charged with Schedule 8 offences will be required to provide DNA samples. It's hoped that this will play a huge role in solving murder and rape cases. Well, let's get reaction by a rape survivor from the hashtag My Voice for Justice campaign, Mbali Shongwe. Mbali, hello. I'm sure we've spoken before over the years about this, and I think this is such an important move in the way we handle these sort of crimes, because this has always been the problem in the past. At least it's a big step in the right direction. What's your reaction?
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I think that for all women, children across the country, not only survivors, knowing that finally there's a system that ensures that people who are violent, people who are criminals and are hurtful will be held accountable, because in our country we had a large instance of reoffending, a large instances of people not being taken to task on the violent and horrible things that they've done. And knowing that now people know that their information will be collected, their information will be accessible nationally across the database, I think is something that is extremely powerful and, like you said, a major leap in justice for us all.
It's not just justice for those who recently have been victims as well, but if we start going back in time, I'm going to bring into the conversation the Democratic Alliance, saying that delaying the DNA amendment bill results in 96,800 violent offenders being released in the last 5 years without DNA samples being taken. I mean, this is the problem. This is the knock-on effect as well. Those who have committed these crimes are released back into society.
And the thing is, when people like that are released, the likelihood that they will reoffend and do the same thing again is so high. With our country, we have one of the highest reoffending rates in the world. So knowing that people's data will now be taken can mean also linking them to lots of crimes and cases that have existed before. And so, like you said, not justice only for us, people who have had these experiences recently, but for many, thousands of people might be taken to task on things that they've done in the past.
It comes down to how the courts are going to handle this as well, which has always been a problem before, a lack of evidence. Now having DNA taken, from what I understand, is before the court case itself, I would imagine, is going to secure more successful prosecutions, isn't it?
Exactly, because a lot of the time people aren't necessarily able to be linked to a crime scene, to a place, and having that information, knowing that they were present already, is a huge step forward, because it becomes a lot harder then for them to deny what has taken place.
And I suppose this also comes down to the very first point of contact with the police and these criminals as well, is that the police, I imagine, would need to have their systems beefed up in order to have these samples done properly, efficiently, and also correctly. Because when it comes down to collecting of the evidence, the police, as we know in rape cases, have been criticised before, that they don't always get it right, do they?
No, I think that our country with the resources, but a failure to implement and a failure to act effectively with what we have. So we just hope, I think that the major hope now is that with the instating of this law, things are done properly and that people are doing their job effectively, because I think sometimes we have the systems, but they're not necessarily used in the correct way or put into action.
Tell me about the My Voice for Justice campaign. It's been going on for some time now, as well, as I imagine the kind of support needed for rape survivors and those who face sexual assault, very, very important. This is obviously good news, but there's work you're doing behind the scenes, isn't there?
Yes, so the My Voice for Justice campaign emerged last year during August, during Women's Month, and it just came from a place of a survivor saying that it's very difficult when it comes to a time like this, when we say, let's celebrate women, let's amplify the women in our lives, but we face the threat of violence every single day. We face so much horror in our country. And so the campaign was to bring to light the real woman behind the stories, because I think in our country we're so desensitized, given the harrowing numbers that we have in terms of violent crimes in our country. And so it was trying to breathe life into these stories, to show the people behind the numbers and to call for two major changes. And that was the police insensitivity that we face, because I think in many cases we hear of women being turned away or being criticized at the hands of the police, secondary traumatized at the hands of the police. And the second was to address the DNA backlog, because our country has a major backlog in terms of DNA processing, and that is denying justice for cases, because black cases are being closed. People aren't seeing their day in court because their DNA hasn't been processed, not because it hasn't been taken, but samples are stuck in a major backlog of millions of samples, and that's denying justice for women across the country. And so that campaign is an ongoing cry to try and bring attention to those issues and to look for the real solutions and solutions on the ground that can help change our lives daily.
Well, as we've always said, justice delayed is justice denied. And for the moment, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm sure we'll get plenty more reaction from Mbali Shongwe, a rape survivor, joining us to talk about government announcing the commencement of part of the Criminal Law Amendment Act to provide additional tools around DNA collection in usage and capturing and prosecuting criminals.